views and opinions expressed on Xplorers Secrets of the Truth or that of their guests or contributors are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. All information on Xplorers Secrets of the Truth is provided in good faith. However, we make no representation or warranty of any kind, express or implied, regarding the accuracy, adequacy, validity, reliability, availability, or completeness of any information on this talk show or website.
From monsters and ghosts to otherworldly beings, join the explorers as they venture into the darkest realms, seeking the truth till it goes bump in the night.
Good evening and welcome to Explorers Seekers of the Truth, episode 70. Tonight, as always, I'm joined by my best friend and co-host, Les Sinkavich. How are you doing this evening, Les?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for asking in such a deep and sultry way. I really appreciate that. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Got a little bit of a cold or really bad allergies, one of the two.
I was going to say, you sound a little congested there, a little froggy.
Yeah. So, do you want to go through our normal spiel and you tell everybody where they can find us?
Certainly. So you could find us on Facebook or on YouTube, two platforms that we go live on. You could comment underneath the show and we will see the comments live. I see Cindy has already commented watching from YouTube, ready for another great show. Thank you, Cindy, and we're glad you're here. You could find us on Twitter at Explorers Group, or X, whatever you want to call it, at our website explorersgroup.com. And that's pretty much it. So Facebook and YouTube are our two big spots.
Yep. So tonight we'll be talking to a gentleman that lives near the Bridgewater Triangle, and we will be diving into his personal experiences and with the phenomena.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can shed some more light on the area. This was one of the shows we had a good time talking about. Mm-hmm. So Les, why don't you introduce our guest for this evening?
Yes, this evening we are going to be joined by Jay Durant, who I have had the pleasure of speaking with about the Bridgewater Triangle, and thought, why not get this guy on the show and so he could share his experiences and knowledge of the area. And we're going to be bringing Jay on here in about 2 seconds. I'll get him into the stream. And there he is. There we go. I'm going to try and reset the thing here and get us back into. There we go.
Hi, guys.
How you doing, Jay?
Good.
Hey,
how's everybody doing?
Fantastic. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Born and raised in Massachusetts. I currently live in North Attleboro, which is, like you mentioned, just outside the Bridgewater Triangle. But growing up in this general area, obviously, all through my childhood, there's been stories that have circulated and various experiences that I've had or people that I know have had.
Well, that's pretty awesome. I know, Jay and I actually worked together for people who don't know. And there were many times we had long conversations about all these weird, strange phenomenon. So I can't wait to get into it tonight. And I just want to say hi to Ron, my neighbor, watching from next door. He commented there from Facebook. So welcome, Ron, and thanks for tuning in.
So now, last time we covered the Bridgewater Triangle, we had talked about the UFO sightings that had taken place back in around the 1970s, around the dog track there in Raynham.
Yeah.
And when we were talking earlier, you had mentioned, Jay, that you had some similar stories and some experiences when you were younger. So maybe kind of break the ice there and have you talk a little bit about those experiences.
Sure. I have two experiences that are interesting when it comes to things in the sky. One, when I was quite young, I was in Boy Scouts. so I might have maybe I was between 8 and 10 years old, something like that. And I remember walking through the woods with my cousins and looking up and seeing this odd light. It was a red light. It was solid, wasn't blinking or anything. But then there was um, another light that was circling around it. Um, and it was just really, really strange. And I remember us looking up at it for quite some time, probably close to 10 minutes, and it wasn't moving. It was just like stationary. And this is years ago, so it was way before drones or anything like that. So certainly unusual. And that would be really relevant to today's conversation in regards to Bridgewater Triangle, because it was right in that area. And then the other experience I had was in Attleboro, Massachusetts, which is again just outside what is, I guess, officially the Triangle. And there was this craft that was really interesting. I was outside and looking up, and it was what I guess has become fairly common, but it was triangle light. So it was
Mhm.
3 white lights, and there was nothing flashing on it. They were just constantly on in a triangle formation, and it was really low. Thinking back many, many years, but it couldn't have been more than, I don't know, maybe 300-400 feet up. It wasn't that high in the sky, and it was completely silent, and it flew over very, very slowly. So I thought it was wild when I saw it, and I didn't know what to do. To be honest, there was other friends around, and a few people saw it, and I thought about calling the police. I didn't know who to call, but then I decided not to, because I figured they'd think I was crazy. But yeah, that was really interesting too. So those are my two stories of sightings, whatever they were.
Well, one of the things you had mentioned there, Jay, and found when we were researching the quote unquote triangle, is it is a much bigger area than Lauren Coleman originally referenced as a triangle. I mean, to the point where it's taken the name the Bridgewater Triangle, but we were looking at reports, and some of it, basically a giant rectangle. When you start adding in this, ghost story or this phenomenon, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's one of the things, like, people, I guess, take it as they think about the triangle because that's what they've always been told. But I think it's a much bigger, resource for phenomenon, so a lot of this stuff is, on the fringes of what the quote unquote technical triangle is. But from the research we did on the first episode, yeah, it's just a lot of areas that have, odd occurrences, UFO phenomenon, paranormal, cryptozoology related. So yeah, there's definitely a much bigger area than I think originally was thrown out. I guess Lauren wrote that book in 1970.
Probably, yeah. It was one of his earlier books. Yeah,
Yeah. So
I have it. I got to check the date on it. I don't remember off the top of my head. But you're right, Chad. Looking at some of the maps and stuff with all these different encounters and experiences and phenomenon, it's almost like a giant rectangular that consumes a large portion of the center of the entire state of Massachusetts, or not entire, but you know what I mean, the entire center of the state. So. But one of the things I found interesting about those UFO or light anomalies that you experienced, Jay, is the first one with the light when you're in the Boy Scouts is very reminiscent. Chad, you might correct me if I'm wrong here, because you probably know better than me. I think there was a report from the 1800s with a stagecoach rider or a carriage rider, when they're transporting around with horse and buggies. They had seen a light very similar, kind of hovering above the tree line. It scared them, startled the horses. The horses took off and everything. And that was, I think, one of the earliest recorded reports of the light anomalies in the Bridgewater Triangle area. Right, Chad?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure from what we had discussed before, that was, like mid 1800s. So
yeah, I know it was a long time ago.
it was one of the first like documented. I think they referred to it as an airship type event because that was commonly what they called them back then.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was. I want to say 1850.
Yeah, just somewhere around there. Yeah, it was like early to mid 1800s, if memory serves me correctly. So yeah, and then the second with the triangular black craft with the lights is very reminiscent to the one in the 70s that Chad was talking about above the Raynham dog tracks, where those two TV reporters had witnessed that. So I just think it's so cool how you have these very notable and very overly talked about encounters, and then you yourself had this personal one back 30 years ago, you know what I mean? And you probably didn't know much of the other stories because I mean we didn't have YouTube, and this paranormal stuff wasn't as popular as it is now. So I mean you wouldn't be privy to it. Like, I mean, now you turn on any station and there's 800 different ghost or paranormal or all things strange kind of shows. So you wouldn't have any reason to make it up.
I think that the information before was few and far between. I feel like probably in high school I may have heard of maybe like a triangle craft. I think maybe that was around the time when they started showing up. I'm not sure, but I can say with certainty I saw what I saw. Whatever it was, I don't know, but it was definitely, it was interesting enough for me to remember it very well all these years later. So it's something that stuck with me.
Yeah. I could imagine. I mean, if I saw something like that, it's something I would never forget. Absolutely.
Yeah. So to your point about the area and the triangle itself, and is it a triangle? Is it a rectangle? I think, a lot of it centers around that swamp, right? The Hockomock Swamp and the surrounding area, but most notably is the King Philip's War, and that was, it's like the forgotten about war. Like a lot of people don't know about it, but it was big. It was the bloodiest war in, I believe, in U.S. history per capita, and it just, those battles, they stretch for vast distances. So I think just all of this land in general, we don't really know what happened.
Right. Chad, you want to give a little bit of a breakdown, since Jay had mentioned the King Philip's War? Just give the listeners a little recap on that.
Yeah, King Philip's War was a war that was fought between 1675 and 1676. And yes, it was a relatively small war, but with a very high casualty rate. About 8% of the men in Massachusetts were killed during this war.
Jesus.
And basically, the war started over the British implementing British law on the local natives, which led a local native chief, Metacomet, to start an uprising and attack settlers. And then, of course, the British, in reprisal, attacked back, burned several villages, several settlements were destroyed. And basically, the war ends with, the death of Metacomet at the hands of the British. And now, Jay, from what we were talking about, as I understand, your home is kind of like right in that area. With some of the garrisons and stuff like that are close by to your home.
Yeah. So the land that my house is built on was part of the farmland for John Woodcock, who was the original settler of the Attleborough. So he was the first one here, and he planted his house and made his farmland, and it's right on Route 1. And if you know anything about Route 1, it goes from Maine to Key West, and it was the main route for people to travel, especially trying to go into Boston. So it's called the Woodcock Garrison House. It's part partially still stands to this day. It's actually a part of the house that was built or added on later in life. The original part, I believe it burned down. But what's really interesting, and I didn't know this until I started having some experiences at my house, which we'll get into in a little bit. But you know, there were incidents that happened right here on this land. Most notably, it was, hold on, it was John Woodcock. Let me make sure. I want to make sure. I don't want to be misquoting.
Yes, do your due diligence, my good man.
Yeah, Woodcock Garrison. Yeah, John Woodcock. So I was having experiences at my house, like I said, we'll get to in a second. And I just started researching, and I just started finding out all this stuff that I had no idea. And it just so happens that, like I mentioned, on this land, John Woodcock, the Indians, they attacked his home, and they started burning down the buildings that were in this area. So I don't know what they were really. They could have been barns. They could have been, I don't know what he would have had for his farmland, but there were buildings, let's say. But the incident led to his sons going outside to fight the Indians, and the Indians actually caught one of his children and beheaded him just outside, and then stuck his head on a stick, on a pole or a stick or whatever. And that's why there's a cemetery right across the street. And they said they buried him where they left him. So they just dug the hole right there, and that's how that cemetery was created. So just goes to show you, that there was intense things that happened all over the place. And that's just one example of something that I found out that just happens to be about land that my house was built on. It's fascinating to think that happened here, but what happened, I don't know, the next town over or the next town over. And there's so much, there's so many battles between the Indians that we really, I don't think we'll ever really understand the gravity of what happened.
That's insane. Now, I remember when we were talking before, so the first garrison is basically across the street. So everybody took refuge in this garrison basically across the street from your home while this King Philip's War was first starting to rise up. The guy's son was beheaded and killed in your front yard. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Pretty close. Within a few hundred yards.
Well, I'm saying your front yard because it's insane. So, and then you also had, during the Revolutionary War, Washington was camped in your front yard.
So I mean, this is a story, but apparently his army would have stayed in the what's the word that I'm thinking of? I guess it's a park across the street. There's a Baptist church, which, mind you, as a side note, the Baptist church was originally just a Baptist meeting house, and that was the first one put in this area by John Woodcock. So just another piece of history. But apparently Washington stayed at that garrison, and his army would have camped out here.
That is insane, dude.
I don't know how factual that is. I mean, I've read that, but I wasn't there. Couldn't tell you.
Given yeah, that's true. But given the fact that you have all these structures that are still standing, you have these historical, plaques, or what do you want to call, markers, all surrounding your home and property. I mean, I would say it's pretty safe to say that if you heard it, it's probably true.
There's a statue. It's a common. It's a whole common in front of the church, And then at the end of the common, there's a memorial for wars. And it talks. There's a part of it's like I don't know all the wars that are listed, but the Civil War is listed there, and it talks about the soldiers. This is where they met before they marched off to war. They met in this common.
Dude, so you have multiple wars. You have the King Philip's War. You have Revolutionary War history. You have Civil War history. So there is a lot of energy in the sense of, emotion.
There's
So,
some stuff that went down.
For
Yeah.
sure. For sure. So you take all that, bottle it up, keep it in the ground, and then Jay's house is built. So let's talk about your house and some of the things that you had experienced.
Yeah, so I purchased this house from my mother, and she had lived here. She moved here when I was an adult, so I had never lived in this house prior, and she lived here for about. She might have lived here 15 years, something like that, and never one incident, at least that she noticed anyway.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we didn't necessarily notice. We didn't notice either because you just don't really believe it. So everything is a coincidence until it's not a coincidence anymore.
Yeah.
So when we first moved in here, we just started knocking things down, and I think that just started to stir it up. And whatever was here apparently didn't like that, and there would be a number of things that were happening, and they were happening over a great deal of time. Like, it was, to be honest with you, it could have been almost 2 years before we kind of like came to our senses and were like, listen, we can't deny this anymore.
Yeah.
Because you feel crazy, to be honest with you, and you don't want to you don't want to admit it to yourself. You certainly don't want to admit it to other people,
Right.
because you don't want to be the neighborhood nutcase. So, just as an example, and I, to be honest with you, I don't even remember all the things that happened for like the first few years because there's so much of it, but it's nothing that possibly could just be explained away. So
Yeah.
you just kind of like let it go. And it happens so often, and you're just like, yeah, it's nothing, it's nothing, it's nothing. But it could be simple things like sounds like someone's up. Right? And we're like, we hear like walking, or we hear there was something that slammed down. Like, one of the first nights I was here by myself, and we had just like ripped out some walls, and I was sleeping upstairs, waiting for the next day to keep on working on the house. And I hear like a slam in the other room, and I'm like, something probably fell. Right? Okay. Explain it away. You hear walking at night. It's probably nothing. You hear a bang over here, a bang over there. It's probably nothing. Slam in the basement. That's probably nothing. That goes on for so long, and then it started to get interesting, where we couldn't like really easily deny it anymore. I was sitting on the couch one night, and we saw the curtain. My wife and I, we saw the curtain come out and then move to the side, like there was a hand coming out from behind and then brushing it aside.
Jesus.
And we both saw it. We both looked at each other, and she said, "Did you see that?" I said, "It looked like the curtain just came out and like moved." And she's like, "Yeah." And that was probably one of the first times that we kind of admitted to ourselves that something weird was going on.
Yeah.
And then it kind of progressed from there. My wife was sleeping on the couch, and she's kind of like half asleep. And by this point, I had cameras set up everywhere in my house. And so we caught this. She said it felt like something hard, like touched the top of her arm and like stroked downward.
Mhm.
The only thing she could describe it was like maybe the TV controller, like someone had pushed on her and gone like that down her hand. You
Jeez.
can see her wake up and just like look around, like what was that just touched me?
Now, was that one of the videos that you sent me?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Unfortunately, we have videos that we wanted to play tonight, but the interface was not cooperating, and it would just be it previewed as a black screen, so we couldn't see anything. So unfortunately, we tried, but we couldn't bring those to light. I'm sorry, Jay. I just wanted to interject there.
Yeah. So, in another instance, and there, like I said, there's a number of things that have kind of happened. I'm just giving you the highlights. The one thing that happened that was interesting and really was the straw that broke the camel's back was, I was laying on the couch and I was watching TV, and then the cameras that I just mentioned, they started this feedback loop, and they started going wow 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 wow, and then the baby gate at the top of the stairs slammed, and then as soon as it slammed, the feedback loop stopped. So then I was like, oh hell no, this
Yeah.
thing is starting to get aggressive, and that's when I called my friend, who in the past had done some investigations, and he hadn't done it in some time, but I said, listen, I need someone to come out and just like have a look and just see what's happening.
Mhm.
So they came out. We did an investigation. um, we had some interesting findings. There's a few videos. If you're familiar with the it's like a yes no prism.
Yeah. Like a pendulum.
It's got a green light and a red light, and you ask the question,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
that type of thing. So you know, although a lot of this stuff has happened, like I'm a skeptic. Like I think some stuff is pseudoscience. So I'm like, okay, well, do I really believe that this device can do this or this device can do that? We all have our opinions, but I can tell you this: what I saw with that device, it looked really legit. I mean, we were asking very specific questions. And nothing would happen with this thing until you asked. And when you asked, then you'd get your answer, yes or no. So it was very interesting, and I have that on video as well, which I sent over. You can have a look, and then I don't know if there's like a follow up or something to this, or you can put a link somewhere, then people could view it, I guess, later. Um, but what happened was at the end of all that, at the end of the night, we saged, and we basically said that you're not allowed to be here anymore. You're bothering us. We were at the point where we were going to sell the house. I couldn't sleep in the house anymore, um, alone anyway.
Yeah.
My wife, um, she would stay at her parents' house, and yeah, it was not a good thing.
Hmm.
So we did the sage, and then from that point forward, there's literally been nothing else that has ever happened in this house. So it kind of it's kind of wild to think about that we did this sage um ceremony, and then it just totally went away. But I think it kind of shows that it wasn't in our head, like
Yeah.
the something legit was going on, and then we told it to go away, and then it did. So it's interesting.
Hmm. For sure. Any other kind of odd happenings when you had the paranormal group in? Did it seem to now I know you were saying you had some activity with the yes no prism, but was there anything else that happened that was notable that you could recall that would kind of make you think, wow, this is really something, substantial that is
There's a
not easily explained away.
there's a interesting orb that when there was a question happening in the other room, you could hear it, and then you'd see it like shoot down the stairs. Um, Typically, I don't know how I feel about orbs, but the fact that it happened at that exact moment, combined with I've had those cameras up for so long, for so many months, and I've never seen an orb.
Yeah.
It's just convenient that that would
Yeah, that would
happen at
happen. Yeah.
that moment in time. So that was interesting. Um, we did some SLS. It could be something, maybe not. It's too tough to tell.
Mhm.
It could have been like mapping things that I
Pixels in the background or something.
yeah, I don't know. Like I only want to like when we did it, I only wanted to focus on what I thought was like really something that could be considered evidence.
Yeah.
Anything that potentially could be. I mean, I guess everything can always be kind of explained away if you're a skeptic, but if you're at least open to the idea, I think we get some compelling footage.
Yeah. Well, I the videos that you had sent over, like the one where you're talking about with your wife getting touched on the sofa, you could definitely see from her reaction that it was like not just a little brushing of something or the
Mm,
blanket, her reaction, you could see like she literally jumped and was like, oh my God,
yeah,
it was something there. And then there was the baby gate in the
yeah,
video that you had sent.
yeah. And you see my reaction when like I'm not, I'm just sitting there on the couch, and then all of a sudden hear the feedback loop, and then that slam, and I was like, that's wild. I didn't know what it was at first. I didn't know what the slam was. All I know is that the um the stairs to the basement are behind the wall of the couch, and I
Mhm.
felt the whole wall shake when it happened. Like it slammed, and then I felt like it was physical, you
Yeah.
know. So it's not like I don't know. It's not like it was just a noise. Like I know that something happened, so I immediately got up, and you see me start to walk over there. I'm trying to figure out what it was. At first, I thought it was the door. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to like recreate it, and I did so many different things to recreate it, and then I'd go back and then I'd listen to the new footage, right? And I'd compare the door or the gate or this or that and whatever, and try to recreate the exact sound. And I could recreate it by doing the gate. So that's how
Mhm.
I know what it was. It's the same exact sound. And
Yeah.
then it makes perfect sense too, because that gate, when it opens to that wall that I felt move.
Yeah.
So for sure that's what it was.
Yeah, and again, in that video, you could definitely see your reaction. Like you hear it first of all, you hear the slam, and then you could definitely see your reaction. At first, it was like a clear state of confusion,
I was
and
confused.
then
Yeah.
yeah, and then you get up like because you can see you kind of like looking around and be like, what the hell, you know what I mean? And you kind of like then venture off where the sound came from. So I
Because
mean, it
it
was
took a
definitely
minute to
legit.
register. I didn't know.
Yeah,
Like I heard
yeah,
it happened, and then you put two and two together, and like it's like, oh wait a minute, I know what that was. That was
yeah,
something that wasn't supposed to happen. Because you
right.
just immediately, it's like, I don't know. You know how like I was saying before, you feel like you kind of ignore everything and you're
Mhm.
oblivious to it, and that happened for so long. If I didn't have the heightened sense at that time, then I would have overlooked it.
Yeah,
I would have just been like, oh, it was the kids or something.
yeah,
I just wouldn't have thought that it could be something else. But the fact of the matter is that there was no one down here.
yeah.
So when I got up and I started to like look at it, then I really realized that something weird had happened.
Hmm. Well, given the history of the land, and I mean, you're going back centuries with, like I said, extreme emotional events, murder, war, you name it. I mean, that is a powder keg of activity that's encased in that area, and it's just waiting to explode, man. And I think that you had one when you started the construction of the house. I think that is a very common segue for paranormal stuff to kind of take shape or take notice, because you're changing something that they're used to. I mean, who knows? It could be, the spirit of the people who owned the home, that built the home before your mom purchased it. You know what I mean? It could be one of them kind of being like, hey, you're changing what we did here, So who knows?
Who died in this house, by the way?
There you go. There you go. I mean, I could definitely explain it.
Which I didn't know until, again, all this started to happen. I started putting everything together. I don't know who it was. I couldn't tell you. Could have been. Excuse me. Sometimes, though, it's funny. I'll tell my friends, I'll say, I miss my ghost. Because you gotta think, like, it was really scary, because it's the unknown, but you also have to look at it and say, like, how fortunate are you to be able to, like, have an experience like that? Not everybody gets to have that experience.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating, right? It's scary and fascinating all in one.
Well, you're fortunate in the sense that it was not malevolent. You know what I mean? Like, or didn't get to the point where it became, because I mean, it was starting to get physical.
Yeah.
But thankfully it didn't progress to anything where it was like beyond the extreme.
Yeah.
So, and saging, with a lot of cases that we've heard of in the past and stuff. Now, I've never saged anything or any place. Like, when we do investigations and stuff like that, we never like saged afterward or anything like that. But a lot of people have had very positive outcome from it. Some people, it was a temporary band-aid. Hopefully for you, it is the long haul, and it wasn't like a real broken spirit from way back when, that maybe it was just the previous owners, and they're kind of like, all right, well, it's your place now, we give up, you know what I mean? But I don't know. And the fact that you are basically right in the triangle is still, you know what I mean, just makes it all the more interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. What I found out, and I had no idea either, was that apparently my town is the third most haunted town in Massachusetts. Who knew? Not me.
I'm not surprised. I mean, with what you're saying, I am not surprised whatsoever. So, segueing out of the paranormal topic, the Bridgewater Triangle is very well known for more than just ghosts. There's talks of, Bigfoot. There's the Pukwudgie, which we had talked about in one of our previous shows, to, extraterrestrial-like creatures. We had the Satanic Panic back in the day. Is there any stories that you recall of any kind of weird cryptozoological-esque creatures?
So I don't have any experience with that. I've just heard, different things over the years, and probably things that many people have heard. Are they true or not? I have no idea. Wouldn't even begin to speculate, but it's anything from Bigfoots to weird creatures that come in and out of the water.
No, that's at the
in the swamp. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, in the swamp. Yeah, I mean, there's many stories from different people, spanning many years, of all different types of creatures. You're talking about the Pukwudgies. There's stories of that there. Just ghosts in general, spirits in that area. I think just the area itself just lends itself to a lot of things that probably aren't easily explained.
Yeah. Well, Cindy brings up a pretty good question there. She says, I wonder why, actually, I'll bring it up so I could read it better, because I can't read it when it's smaller like that. I wonder why sometimes spirits or ghosts leave more easily, and other times they refuse to leave a place. What are your thoughts on that, Chad?
Well, I mean, it also comes down to sometimes are spirits a psychological manifestation of
Mhm.
energy, or are they legit, spirits, like the leftover energy from a human? So
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask Jay, like, you guys did a smudging, like it worked for you. Do you have any like feelings on why it worked, or just kind of?
I don't really know. I mean, the way it was left was basically y- you're not welcome here anymore. You need to leave. And I didn't participate in that. Like that
Mm,
was them that did it. Um and I have all that on video too. And we had a medium, and she went through every room, and she, I don't want to say she blessed the house because I don't think that's really what it is, but um
Just cleansed
did
it.
cleansed it.
Yeah.
Um and I don't know, I can't explain it. It just, nothing has been here since, or
yeah.
if it is, it hasn't made itself known, and I
Mm.
don't feel it.
Now
I
with oh, sorry, with the
I
medium,
Yeah.
did they identify anybody? Did they like point to a specific
Mm,
area of the house? Was it kind of just them walking around and kind of getting a feel for the place? Did they give you any kind of background on what they were seeing or feeling?
we did um we did a session. I forget what's it called when you're blindfolded and have the headphones on.
The
What meth
Estes?
whatever method. Um and we did that, and we got um some interesting feedback there. Um I don't remember all the details. It wasn't
Mm,
anything that was earth shattering, but it was interesting. And what she said was weird. She she was talking more about like a different type of entity rather than like a ghost. She
mm,
was saying like some kind of like, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but like elf or like fairy or some type of different entity, which
mm,
I
mm.
don't personally subscribe to. Um, I think anything's possible, but do I necessarily think that? No, I don't. But either way, at the end of the day, whatever she did at the end of the night, that whatever it was is gone. So she
Mhm.
had to have been onto something.
Well, I mean, when you go into like older Celtic folklore and stuff like that, and you look at like elves and fairies and stuff like that, they're more of it's a term used more for like elemental spirits.
Mm,
So she may be referring to it as an elf or a fairy, but in the actual like folklore and traditional pagan religions, they are more of elemental spirits, which is where they are more based on the ground and property and the elements inside of the area that they're occupying.
mm,
So I mean, she may be seeing it as that or saying it as that, but it could really just be breaking down to the traditionalist of the folklore there.
mm.
One of the other things I wanted to ask, with all the stuff around the house, have you guys seen strange lights? Any heard, like in Gettysburg, you'll have at
Mm,
night, you'll have pops of light. You'll
yeah,
have the sound of muskets, you know, being fired at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, echo through town,
yeah.
crystal clear. So have you guys experienced anything like that around the house, like with the
I
garrison and stuff,
No,
cemeteries?
I haven't. Um, no, I've never heard anything like that. I've never seen
Yeah.
anything strange in this general area.
Mhm.
Um, Interesting thing about the that Garrison house though was, I was talking to someone in this area, and they were saying how they used to live next to it when they were a kid,
Mhm.
and she said that when she used to like look out her window, she would see like people like in that building, like in the
Yeah.
middle of the night. So I thought that was kind of interesting too, that she had an experience. I talked to the neighbor right next to my house here, and it's a 3-family, and he doesn't live there. He just has his tenants live there, and he told me that he's had numerous tenants tell him that his 3rd floor is haunted. So I thought that
No
was
way.
interesting. Yeah, I don't know, but in terms of seeing anything outside or anything, I've never seen that. But the stories are endless, like just people just in this general area and having weird encounters with all different things.
I think the more neighbors you talk to, I think you would probably learn a lot more than you probably would want to know, like or care to know, without getting too creeped out. Because I would imagine, like I said before, with everything going on, there's probably a lot more people that, like you said, you don't want to sound like the town nut job or the town crazy. You know what I mean? So you kind of keep it to yourself, don't talk about it. But yeah, I think that is
There's way
it's
more
pretty wild.
people that have come out of the woodwork and told me that, oh yeah, I've had an experience. If
Mhm.
I like bring it up, it's wild. The amount of
Yeah,
people that are just, you'd never think that
yeah.
they had that they would admit to it. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
But they had the experiences. When I went to town hall to dig up some stuff on this house, I was talking to the clerk, and I said, I don't want you to think I'm crazy, but I think my house is haunted. And she basically said, no, I wouldn't think you're crazy, and believe me, you're not the first one to come in here.
That's awesome. To sit down with that person for a night, I bet you'd learn a lot.
It was pretty cool. So yeah. Yep.
Well, you want to move on to the next topic there, Chad?
Yeah, so now you've been lucky enough to go to the Conjuring house. So, give us a little bit about what you felt, seen, heard of,
Now, is the Conjuring house that is in within the perimeter of the triangle, right? Or within the confine or general vicinity?
I mean, it's 20-minute drive from here, so it's close. It's in
Mhm.
Rhode Island. Um, Bridgewater is Massachusetts. I'm in
Oh
Massachusetts,
yeah, I
but
guess.
we're on the line. But how the Conjuring House is relevant is because I don't know all the fine details of the Conjuring House. I know enough to talk through it a bit, but when the parents, I forget which one of the daughters said that she would get talked to at night, and they talked about the soldiers in the walls. What they believe is they were saying the soldiers within the walls are the confines of the property, because there's a stone wall that surrounds the property, and those soldiers, looping all the way back, comes full circle, were soldiers from the King Philip's War. So
Yeah.
that's how it ties in this entire area. Um, so I went there. I've only been one time. I was just curious. They have tours. It's been sold a few times over the years, and it was interesting. Um, it feels a bit creepy, but I think it's mostly because it's just an old house and it smells funny. Like it's just old, right? And you just
Yeah.
kind of get like that feeling, it has that smell. It's it's if these walls could talk type
Yeah.
of thing. Um but I didn't have an experience there. Um I feel like it could potentially have something going on there.
Mhm.
I don't feel like I'm a non-believer. I didn't have any experience there. Um,
Mhm.
but the tour guide, he showed me some CCTV footage on that he had on his phone, And it was really incredible. It was this like orb, and it started to circle, and it created a circle basically because it was moving so fast.
Mhm.
And then it kind of like, if I remember correctly, like imploded on itself and then disappeared. It was like
Yeah.
this like it like created like a portal. It was really weird. So I don't know if that's ever been seen anywhere, to be honest. I've never seen that footage.
No, it doesn't
Um,
ring a bell to me either.
Yeah, so I think this is just his personal, footage that he has, because he was staying there as like a caretaker and like a tour guide. I
Mhm.
don't recall his name now, but that footage was very cool. And I wish I could have seen that when I was there.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure, for sure.
but that's
Now,
something I'd like to go back. I'd like to
yeah.
go back, and I'd like to actually spend some real time there and see what I could see.
Well, maybe we could all set something up and we could all go together
Yeah,
and actually investigate the place. See what we could scare up.
yeah, that would be a good time, I think.
I think it'd be a great time. Here's a question. Did you go to the Conjuring house before or after your experiences in your own home?
It was after, but
Okay.
because it had been happening in my house for years,
Mhm.
and then we went there, and I don't remember the exact timing, but no, I don't think I took anything home with me.
Okay, I just was checking. All right. Well, the other thing. What was the other house, Chad, that you wanted to mention?
Oh, Jay had mentioned about going to the Lizzie Borden house and kind of had an interesting take on it. And it's something I've kind of thought over the years myself. So I kind of want to see if Jay would kind of share a little bit on his experience there.
Yeah. So my personal opinion is, it's a cool story. I think that you know there's some foul play there. I don't remember all the exact details, to be honest with you, but there was like it was like a maid or something, or aunt. I have no idea, but somebody made off with the loot. That's what I know, and she moved to like the Midwest somewhere,
Mhm.
and bought a farm and lived out her days. Um, do I think that house feels haunted in any way? No, I didn't. I didn't get that feeling.
Yeah.
It didn't. It didn't strike me as really creepy at all. Um, I feel like at this point it's a business. That's
Yeah.
that's what I think it is. There's a gift shop in the back, and you know, it's there's a story, and somebody's making money, and that's all well and good. Um, but I don't think that I wasn't scared. Let's put it that way. But
Mhm.
I do have a funny story about being there. I went with a friend, and when you're doing the tour, there's a point where you remember there's like a picture, and it has the guy, and he was like murdered on the couch.
Mhm.
Remember
Mhm.
that picture?
Yep.
Yeah.
Get murdered with the axe. Well, they have a couch there. It's not the same couch, but it's a couch that is similar. And what they do is they give you like a rubber axe, and then you like lay on the couch, and then like someone's like pretending, and then you like take a picture, and just post it on
Oh
Facebook or something, right?
God.
So they do that in the tour, and everybody gets their chance, and we're waiting in line. One person goes, next person goes, then it's my friend's turn to lay on the couch. So he lays on the couch, and then you immediately see him jump up, and he's scared. He's like, "Oh my God!" And we're like, "What?" And he's like looking down, and he's like all wet. So he had no idea like what happened. All he knows is like he's in this scary house, and he laid down, and now he's all wet. Well, it turns out the guy before him had a water bottle in his pocket, and he
Oh God.
laid down. He spilt all the water on it. But it was funny to see him get so scared so quickly. Yeah, that was the scariest thing of the Lizzie Borden house.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to a term I coined years ago, paratourism. You have a little bit of a story,
Yeah.
you hype it up, you get a few people in there, you get a few television shows coming through. Yeah, over the years, I've watched so many things on the Lizzie Borden house and the actual murder and all that stuff, and never once did I see anything compelling to make me go, yeah, I really think that is haunted, or there's really something to what they're saying. A lot of it is conjecture, a lot of it is, you know, oh, they heard something. Well, of course, if you have a TV crew, there's 3, 4 of you in a house, and the house is only so big, and if you drop something on the 3rd floor, it vibrates the stair rail. The stair rail vibrates the 2nd floor, and the person on the 1st floor hears it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's paratourism. It's one of the greatest things in America because all you got to do is start a ghost tour. If you start a ghost tour, you can rent the place out for $400 to $800 a night, investigating it, and then you get 1 or 2 TV shows to show up, and you're you're selling out every weekend.
Mhm.
Yep.
And that's the sad part about it, though, is because I would love to go up and try and investigate that house, but because it is a paratourism hotspot, I'd be afraid that if we would find something, was it something that they had already set up to be found? You know what I mean? Like, is the place rigged? Yeah,
I
I don't
thought
know.
of that in the Conjuring house. I was like asking myself when I was there. I was like, if, and that's probably a terrible way to look at things, but or it's a very good way of looking at things. It's like, if I wanted to make this, you know, I guess if I wanted to deceive and I wanted people to come in and I wanted to give tours and there was people going to investigate, like, what would I do to be able to dupe people? Because I kind of feel like that's your livelihood, right? Like, if
Yeah.
something's not showing up, if there's not a door creaking, then it's a problem for your business.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, if I was them, w- w- do I think that someone would do that? Yeah, I think it's totally possible. I think people do anything for $1. So
Yeah.
I was like, is it possible that they have all these cameras everywhere? Well, how do I know they don't have speakers everywhere?
Mhm.
How do I
Yeah.
know they don't?
Hmm.
They might,
And they don't have to be big, obnoxious
No.
speakers either, because you just need something small just to make a sound that you might hear yourself or pick
Yes.
up on an EVP.
Yep. It could be
Yeah.
anything. So
Yeah.
that's the thing to your point, Chad, when you're investigating or doing something of that nature in a basically a tourist attraction. I mean, that's
Mhm.
literally what it is, right?
Yeah.
Then there would be financial gain to ensure that it stays a tourist attraction.
Yeah.
Well, less than I've experienced it, and I won't name the because, well, I won't. Yeah, one of those boo buddies. These, objects that are supposed to light up or make noise when ghosts are near them.
Yeah.
Well, of course, you're told, "Oh, this one doesn't have any batteries in it. Look, the
Mm,
battery thing's empty."
mm,
And then you're sitting there, and about an hour later, all of a sudden the thing moved or chirped,
mm.
and they're like, "Well, there's no batteries in it. It couldn't do that." And I'm like, we walked out afterwards. I looked at Les, and I'm like, if I can put one battery pack and wire it to something, I can wire a second battery pack.
Yeah.
It doesn't, because you're not sitting there breaking down the object going, "Oh, there's completely no batteries in here," because it's
Yeah.
this, stuffed animal. And they're like, "Well, here's the battery pack in the back and it's empty. Look." And it just chirped. It made a noise. Well, it doesn't take much to, have a battery inside of it under, under the, leg or something like that, where it's just tucked in that they can walk by, or they have a clicker. Just take a little remote
Yeah.
start clicker and
Yeah.
you click it while you're sitting there. Because some of the places the guides sit there with you and they have their hands in their pocket or they're fiddling with their stuff, and it's like, what would it take for you to click a button? We're not sitting there watching you,
Yeah.
So yeah, paratourism, it's very hard, over the years of investigating, some of the most famous places in, North America, or at least the eastern part of North America. It's very hard to say that some of these places aren't even just completely rigged.
It could be. It could
Yeah,
be.
there's no power to this building except for there's a second meter, and that meter is run to a few things, and one of them's a hot line. So when you run an EMF through a room, all of a sudden you're getting a result, but there's no power. Why am I getting this? And it's intermittent. Somebody has a button clicker, or there's, especially with these places with all these cameras nowadays. I mean, you can watch cameras. You can go on, I think it was Waverly, and you can watch their cameras at night from anywhere in the world.
Right.
So if I'm, in the control center at home and I go, oh, they're up in the room where we tell everybody this happened, and I push the button on my computer, a little thing pop up, or, a lock, is magnetic and it twists all of a sudden, so yeah, power tourism, it is very much something you have to look at when you're investigating these locations.
Well, one of the things that I thought was interesting is that one place that you mentioned in particular with that specific object, when we asked if we could take a look at it, we were told we couldn't touch it because the spirits don't like when things get moved, which made me kind of think, A, all right, you just threw yourself under the bus. And B, if the spirits don't like when things get moved, that's what we paid for. You know what I mean? Like, well, let's move all the shit in here and stir some stuff up, Yeah. But,
and notice we weren't told that the second time we were there. It was only the first time when it did it.
Right.
And when we told the tour guide, oh, we had been here before investigating, all of a sudden that didn't happen.
Right.
So it's almost like, if I know you've been here before, I'm not going to make the same thing happen over again. So we'll do something else. Now, we did get other stuff at that location. I never felt like it was that great of evidence, but there were some little interactions here and there.
Yeah, we did get some really good actual interactions with it's an EMF meter, but it does the lights, and it also has an audible sound. Now, we did an EMF sweep of that area excuse me, before we put any other equipment in there. And I mean, we went through that with a fine-tooth comb because it was a dirt floor. Could easily have a wire hidden underneath it that was just maybe a couple of inches under where we're going to be putting stuff. You know what I mean? And like Chad said, could it be a hot wire where you have a clicker and, it sets stuff off? Very well possible. I don't know. But we had a millimeter and this EMF with the audible sound, and the whole night our wives were down there, talking and interacting. Nothing happened. They were walking past these meters and everything. Meters didn't go off. And these are things that if you touch them, they're sensitive. I mean, they could, you know what I mean? They could go off. Nothing was happening the whole time. And then all of a sudden we all go upstairs and we have a camera. Now, unfortunately, the camera that I had on it is an old with one of the mini tapes, so Chad and I have been desperately trying to figure out ways to get it off and make that file digital. And I keep getting like a tick, 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 tick. So it ruins all the audio. You know what I mean? You can still hear talking and the beeping, but you want to listen for EVPs and whatnot. So you just hear that ticking and it kind of screws it all up. But anyways, we all leave, and all of a sudden that one meter starts beep, 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 and it doesn't go unless it's on like a hot piece of electricity. Excuse me. And we were upstairs, but we could hear it. And then Chad came back down afterwards, and he was walking around. He's going up to these meters and stuff, and nothing was happening. But he started talking to a potential child spirit in this area. And literally it was and this is our equipment. It wasn't like, where they're giving us stuff, or that, it was stuff that was provided and we're not overly familiar with it. It's stuff that we know that you put a battery in it, it reads frequency, and it beeps when it picks something up and lights up. That's as simple as it gets, you know. And every time he would ask a question, it would beat back in response. So that was probably the best evidence that we've ever gotten at that location. We've been there a couple of times, and I'm trying very hard to get it off of that old camera because there's a lot of things that we want to start piecing together and put a video out for everybody. But could it have been a hot wire underneath? I don't know, because I think that was the time that we did the investigation when the guide was not there. The second time the guide was there.
The second time the guide came down with us,
Yeah,
it was the cool guide that we actually hung out and talked to for a while after.
Yeah. And his hands were exposed. Like you could see he wasn't touching anything.
And he actually, let us stay a little bit longer. And I mean, this is the same location where when my wife went in, the first time she ever went in it, she got nauseous and disoriented, and I got the strange picture with the background's all blurry, but yet she's in focus. And so it's definitely a building that has some history and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think that spot is wired, or at least wasn't being manipulated at that point, because you guys were upstairs, it was going off, I went downstairs, was asking questions, and it was, let's face it, for some reason, when it comes to certain types of spirits, I seem to have the luck with them.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it was very interesting nonetheless. But I agree to the point of that is a lot of these places are paratourism. They are pay to play, and I don't know how much stock I would put into it or how much trust I would put into a lot of these places, just because the simple fact, if nothing's happening, people aren't going to come back and spend money, So, but anyways, we are past the hour, and this pretty much concludes our return to the Bridgewater Triangle. Jay, I want to thank you so very, very much for coming on the show tonight and sharing your experiences and telling the stories about, around your house. I mean, actually, there is one more thing that maybe we could talk about if you care to, with the hitchhiker.
I mean, I don't really have that much to add in terms of the Route 44 hitchhiker, other than growing up in this area, it's always been kind of like a tale that everyone knows. I mean, it's just I don't know where it comes from, but just like it just gets passed on and on and on and on. But basically, what I was saying is, I don't know what the story is that other people have heard, but what I was told as a child was, you see the red-haired phantom on Route 44, and then like he supposedly disappears, and then he ends up like in your back seat. That's as a kid, that's what I was told. So then anytime you're driving in that area, and there's no lights, right? There's long dark stretches, and you kind of have that in the back of your mind. You're kind of like always just kind of like looking back like an idiot. Yeah. But yeah, that's all I really know about that.
Well, I could tell you, if I were a kid driving down that stretch at night, I'd be terrified. And if you're driving along with your parents and stuff, and you'd be the one in the back seat, and this guy might show up next to you.
Yeah.
I did hear from another buddy of mine from up in that area that there's a supposed hermit that kind of fits the description of the red-haired phantom hitchhiker. And I guess this dude is just a guy who had the shits of society and decided to just take off and live in this very primitive, crude shelter that's just, a couple miles into the woods. And I guess it's that well hidden that people don't know where this guy lives, but he kind of comes in and out of the outskirts of town, raids people's garages and their beer fridges and stuff like that. Like, just basically steals your food and then goes back to his shack and doesn't bother anybody. But they've seen him walking along Route 44 and some of the surrounding areas. And I guess they said it looks like he took like scraps of an old wool coat or something like that, and just crudely tied them around his feet as like booties and stuff like that. And like this dude is like scraping the bottom of the barrel, I guess, for apparel and stuff like that and footwear. But I don't know, maybe he is mistaken for this phantom. I don't know, but it is weird. It is weird. But anyways, I don't want to go on too long. I don't want to consume your living room time and have your wife upset. So we will conclude tonight's show. And Jay, if we have another show of Massachusetts or the Bridgewater Triangle or any kind of weird phenomenon, you're more than welcome to come back. And hopefully we could get together, the three of us or the three of us and our wives or whatever. We'll get a group together. We'll do the Conjuring House, and we'll try and do some of the other spooky areas. And actually, what I would really like to do is get a decent enough group together, because one of the places we didn't talk about was the Freeport State Park, which that's what it's called, right? Freeport State Park, where the Satanic Panic happened.
Don't ask me. I don't know.
Oh, I figured you would know, being a local.
No, well, I don't know that one.
I do know that there is because a couple of people that we know, that you and I know from work, had mentioned some pretty weird experiences. One person had mentioned that there was a girl he knew who was a nurse, would, for whatever reason, this woman would go jogging through the state park where the Satanic Panic took place. And he said that she was jogging along one of the trails where she felt something hit her leg. And she kind of got spooked a little bit, so she ran a little bit faster because she didn't want to stop. And then she realized it was fishing line. And as she got a little bit further, she looked back and she realized that she was dragging a good bit of it. And there were like animal bones tied to it. So she ran to a point where she felt safe enough to stop and cut it off of her leg because it was that wrapped around, because I guess it was across the trail, but there were animal bones and stuff attached to it. One of my friends actually went to school with one of the two boys who had found that girl that was murdered and just kind of strung up to a tree in that state park during the height of the Satanic Panic. Actually, that was the start of it, to be honest with you. He had gone to school, one of the boys that found it, and a lot of weird stuff. So if we could ever get the opportunity to get up there, I'd like to hit that. I'd like to go over to New Hampshire and hit the stretch of road where the Benny and Barney Hill abduction took place, Conjuring House possibly. So maybe we could do a New England trip, get some filming done up there, and we could start doing some videos to share with everybody, and maybe build up a Patreon following with a lot of these locations we go and investigate. So,
but Benny and Barney Hill one's interesting. The story obviously is awesome. But it's just a plaque, and it's on the side of the road, and that's basically, what you get to see. It's outside of like this motel, and that's supposedly where they were abducted or close to. And then you have to go to a gas station bathroom to look at whatever there is for historical documentation. It's in a gas station bathroom.
Gas station bathroom.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to do some filming all crammed into a bathroom, I guess. And see
that's literally where it is.
Footage.
Yeah, I don't know. But It's funny because the gas station is like all like inflatable like aliens, and the side of the building's painted and the whole deal. And
now I really want to go.
You have to go to the bathroom to see. There's like newspaper clippings, and that's the museum, the Benny and Barney Hill Museum, the gas station.
The Benny and Barney Hill Bathroom Museum. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll plan for stuff like that in the future, but for now, we are past the hour. And again, dude, thank you so very much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for tuning in and your comments and all that, and for always following along. So until next time, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. I think the next show is going to be Strange Phenomenon, which is kind of going to be encompassing strange noises, just strange things that take place throughout the world that is kind of hard to explain. So that's kind of where we're leaning. It may change. If it does, we'll let you guys know, but that's what we're leaning towards for the next show. So we will see you in 2 weeks on a Tuesday night at 8:30. That will be, what is today, the 12th? The 26th. Tuesday the 26th at 8:30 is the next show. Chad, have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, just answering Matt's thing is, of course you are, Matt. You're the team electrician. That's what I plan for you, is you come and debunk all the electrical phenomenon.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Chad and I talked about that, and you're
Yeah.
going to be a key player there.
Yeah. Like to thank Jay for, coming on tonight and sharing his stories. And again, like Les said, thank you everybody for, commenting and asking questions and being part of the show. And we shall see you in 2 weeks.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Good night.